Hey everybody, it's MotherGoose27 and welcome back to my channel. So, since 2019, my nephew and his now wife have been trying to get me into Magic the Gathering. We played a couple games back then, it didn't really stick. Then we had a family lake trip where my nephew bought a draft pack and asked that we play a draft, and he taught us all how to play. It was fun, but it didn't really stick. Then they invited me to the Adventures of the Forgotten Realms pre-release, but I couldn't stay because I had work that night and I didn't have enough time to actually play. But I got some cool cards that I was actually interested in, and this was right around the time that I was actually starting to get into Dungeons & Dragons. I was listening to Dungeons & Dragons podcasts. We were starting to get ready to start recording our own Dungeons & Dragons podcast. I was working on my campaign. I was really into Dungeons & Dragons at the time. I still am. Love it. But the timing of this is really important. And then it came to my nephew's actual bachelor party, and I was the best man, and he told me he wanted to do a Magic the Gathering draft. So I got a Adventures in the Forgotten Realm draft box, and we ended up playing till 2 or 3 in the morning, and that was it. I was hooked. In just that night, it went from something that I casually did sometimes so I could hang out with my nephew to my new addiction, and so I finally started playing Magic the Gathering. Now, I know what you're saying. But Mother Goose, we're on Kamigawa. Adventure of the Forgotten Realms was months ago. Yep. Yeah. When I say in my title, my new addiction, I literally mean my new addiction. When I got hooked, it was really bad. I'm through it now. Now it's just more like a casual hobby. But those first few months, all I could think about was Magic the Gathering. Literally, I'd wake up, start thinking about it, and I'd be thinking about cards I wanted, strategies, how to play, all the way until I fell asleep. And then, I kid you not, I literally would be dreaming about it all night. It was bad. I was playing almost every day. I spent way too much money than, way more than I should have on cards. And I really let a lot of things in my life slip because all I could think about and all I could do was Magic the Gathering. I stopped hanging out with regular friends like I used to. I wasn't going to the gym as much as I needed to. I wasn't working as much as I needed to. I work for a third-party delivery service, so I can work whenever I want, but I wasn't going as much as I needed to. And then what money I was making was going into Magic the Gathering. And my content creation here on YouTube suffered as well because I would much rather wake up and work on a deck than work on a video, and it got really bad. I was hyper-fixating on this game so much. But I've gotten through it. Now that I have a few actually really good decks, and I've actually gotten plenty of time to play with people, it's calmed down. I'm chill. I am chill now. It's been a few months. I can just, go enjoy a casual game and not think about it till the next week. But that's just how I am personally. When I find a new hobby, I hyperfixate really bad. When I got into Warhammer, I was hyperfixating for years. Now, I didn't have anyone that I could play the tabletop against, so it wasn't so bad, but literally all I would listen to was lore videos, and I spent hundreds of hours playing Total War Warhammer 2 and 3. You probably can't see, but I have a Grand Alliance of Order on these 2 shelves, and then a Grand Alliance of Death that I'm working on these 2 shelves. There are a ton of other, franchises that I'll just, randomly hyperfixate over. Right now, kind of obsessed with Star Wars again. Not gonna lie, I've been playing through Jedi Fallen Order, I've been watching through Rebels, I of course have my Star Wars podcast, link in the description below. Also, I should have plugged it earlier, but there'll be a link in the description for my D&D podcast, Elements of Great Adventure, as well. We are on a second arc. You should definitely check it out, it's really good. Now, I know what you're thinking. He's obsessed. He must have a card binder. And you're right, I do have a card binder. I got a monster binder, which I love this thing. It has enough space for 360 or 380 cards. I think it's 60. And it is fantastic. I have all my rare and mythic rare cards in here. I also have some common and uncommon cards in here, but that's mostly just because they're ones I'm thinking about using in future decks. I love just flipping through this. I'm not gonna lie, I almost didn't make this video today because I started looking through it. And I was looking through cards and I was like, oh man, I want to put that in a deck, and oh, I should build a deck around this. And next thing you know, like 20 minutes had passed, and I was like, oh, frick, I was supposed to start recording 20 minutes ago. I almost have this binder filled out. I've got a few more sleeves, but I'm sure a couple more sets and I'll have it filled just fine. So in terms of what I actually play, I do enjoy Standard. I've got a couple Standard decks. I think I have 5 Standard decks. I've got 3 precons that I upgraded, and then a mono white and a mono blue deck. Yeah, the mono blue is not very good because I wanted to build it around sea creatures instead of what blue is actually good at, which is controlling the board. I've never played it, so I guess I can't say it's not very good, but based on the cards that are in there, I don't have much hope on it. But I don't have much hope for it. But I enjoy Standard, but I really don't play that often. I've played a few games, but I don't think I've played Standard in months, really, since I really got addicted to it. I enjoy Draft and the pre-releases. It's fun to be a little competitive, but I always end up having a really bad headache by the end of the night, so I don't draft very often. I'd like to draft a few times for Kamigawa, just because there's still a few cards that I'm looking for. But if I'm gonna be playing Magic, it's most likely Commander. I love Commander, so fun, especially like multiplayer Commander. One-on-one's okay, but it's very competitive. I prefer a more just like casual, we're all just playing together. Like at the end of the night, if everyone can walk away with a win, that's my ideal game of Commander. But I really, really enjoy it. I love the uniqueness of having to build a deck around the fact that you can't have more than one of each card in there, so there's a lot of variety. Every time you shuffle, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a completely unique draw, and the ban list isn't as fierce. Yeah, I typically play Commander at least twice a week. Once typically with my nephew and his wife, and typically I'll go to my local game store at least once, which, let me just say before I start talking about my decks, I've made so many friends in these last few months thanks to Magic the Gathering, and I really appreciate that. Like, I don't really like partying, there's not a lot to do where I live, and with my job and trying to be a YouTuber, I don't really get to meet a lot of people, and so having this hobby and it actually being a social one has been really great for me. I think I really needed this social interaction in my life. I was getting a little sad and lonely. Let's talk about the decks. Okay, this is my Dual Dragons case. I've got Tiamat and the Dragon. The Dragon deck sucks. It needs a massive, massive rework. I've only played it once, and it just did not vibe. It did not do even remotely close to what I wanted it to do. Tiamat, on the other hand, is a monster. This is a monster deck. This is my I'm fighting against for lifers deck. In Magic the Gathering, there's 5 colors. In Commander, your quote-unquote commander, whatever color they are, the rest of your cards have to fit within those colors. Tiamat is I don't know how you can see it. Tiamat is a WUBRG commander, meaning she is all 5 colors, and what she does is when she enters the battlefield, I get to search my deck for 5 dragons. I do have to reveal them, and I can't play them unless I pay their mana cost, but it's basically a tutor for my 5 most powerful cards, and with that, I have a combo. If done right, I can play 18 to 27 dragons in one turn. Now, most of the time, unless I have a ton of mana for some reason, it won't be the same turn I get Tiamat. So I get Tiamat. With it, I grab these 5 cards: Mephoron the Boundless, Niv-Mizzet Reborn, Scion of the Dragon, Okagachi Vengeful Kami, and Nicobolus the Ravager. So what Mephoron does is I choose a creature type, dragons, and it reduces the cost of those creatures by Wooburg. All of the other cards I mentioned are Wooburg, except for Nicobolus, but he's red, black, blue, and one colorless. So essentially, I play Mephoron, and then I get to play all of these cards for free. Now, here's where it gets really good. If I have Wild Pair out, which it says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, you may search your library for a creature card with the same total power and toughness and put it onto the battlefield. Now, essentially, I'm getting 5 extra dragons. But if I get Lathlis the Dragon Queen, which I did not grab, apparently, when I was looking through my deck, she says, whenever a dragon I control enters the battlefield and it's not a non-token creature, I can then create a token 5/5 dragon. So, she is a 6/6, just like Mephoron. So I play Mephoron, bring her out, and then for my other dragons that I'm getting to play for free, not only am I bringing 4 more dragons from my deck, I'm also adding 8 more dragons. Now, I know what you're saying, that's only 18, and that's why I said 18 to 27. So, if I play Utvara Hellkite and Klauth, which said Klauth has haste, and whenever I attack, whatever the total power is for all my creatures, I get to add that amount of mana in any color. And Utvara says whenever a dragon you control attacks, put a 6/6 red dragon creature token onto the battlefield. Klauth also has haste, so it can attack this turn. Even if I play all those dragons just that turn, if I attack with Klauth and Tiamat, which Mephoron gives them a +1/+1, that's a total of 13 power attacking, I will then get to add 2 more token dragons, which won't apply for Wild Pair or the Lathlis Dragon Queen, but that's still 2 more dragons, bring me up to 20. I then now have an extra 13 mana, where I could essentially play another dragon, which would bring in another 3 dragons, if I have it in hand. Now, where this gets really deadly is if instead of Nicobolus, I bring out Bladewing the Risen. I have to have a little extra mana to do this. For my second card I play right after Mephoron, if I play Scion of the Ur-Dragon, I can spend 2 mana, I can search my library for a dragon card and put it into the graveyard. If I do, Scion of the Ur-Dragon becomes a copy of that card until end of turn. Shuffle your library. So what do I put in there? Terror of the Peaks. Now, Terror of the Peaks says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peak deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So now, I've got a Terror of the Peak on the field, which means for my next 3 dragons I cast, which will add an extra total of 12, I can deal that much damage across the board, which I think equates to around 60 to 70 damage, where I can do anything to creatures or players directly. But if I play Bladewing the Risen right after Mephoron, or actually, you know what, I just realized I don't even need to cast Bladewing the Risen, because I can still bring in Nicobolus the Ravager, play it for free, because Bladewing the Risen's power and toughness equals 8, just like Nicobolus. When Bladewing the Risen enters the battlefield, I get to bring a dragon from my graveyard back to the battlefield, which means I can bring Terror of the Peak onto the battlefield, and for that turn, I have 2 Terror of the Peaks, meaning I am doubling the damage I am doing across the board just by playing creatures. It is an insane combo. It's not necessarily a game-winning combo, and it's one that can easily be stopped. But when it does happen, it is disgusting. And I have actually got to use it. A couple cards I have to help out with that is Mirari's Wake, which means when I tap for mana, I can add 2 of whatever mana was created. I've got things like Judah Archmage Eternal, which means instead of paying the normal CMC, I can pay Wooburg instead. And then I've got a lot of dual and tri-lands in my deck, which a lot of them enter tapped, but I have Amulet of Vigor to help combat that, which means if I play a card that enters tapped, I can then immediately untap it, which is fantastic. Haha! I found Lathlis. Sorry, I'm looking through my deck right now. I also have Spirit of Resistance, which says, if I have a permanent of every color on the battlefield, prevent all damage that will be dealt to me. That is a game-winning card. It is disgusting in this deck. And then I have 3 cards like Chromatic Lantern. They're not all Chromatic Lantern, but they all give the same effect. It says lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Again, just trying to guarantee that I always have the color I need within this Wooburg deck, which is kind of hard, but it really, really works out. I've also got a ton of mana dorks. I have 2 infinite combos, one with Bladewing the Risen, Tear of the Peak, and I think it's called Twin Flames. So there's a legend rule where you can't have 2 of the same legendary creatures on the battlefield at once. Under your control, you play Bladewing, make a copy of it, and then basically one gets sent to the graveyard, and you just kind of keep bringing it back with its ability. And then with Terror of the Peak, you're bringing that back an infinite number of times, which means you can do an infinite number of damage across the board. It's fantastic. I also have a Relic Bind Basalt Monolith combo, and I specifically got the Relic Bind that said it could be any artifact, not opponent's artifacts. What Relic Bind says is when you attach it to an artifact, and anytime the artifact gets tapped, I can either deal 1 damage to any player or give myself 1 health. Basalt Monolith taps for 3 mana, and then I can spend 3 mana to untap it. So basically, you just tap, untap an infinite number of time, and either give yourself infinite life or deal infinite damage, or both. Why not both when you could? I also am planning to add a couple more win cons. Like, I want to add Approach of the Second Sun, which I have. I just haven't added it to the deck yet. And Triskaidekaphile. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but it says I have no maximum hand size, which means I can have as many cards in my hand as I want. And if I have 13 cards in my hand at my upkeep, I win the game. And there's a couple other win cons I'm thinking of adding, but I've also got a lot of mana dorks, a lot of counter spells, and it is a really good deck. It's definitely still needs, I think, 1 more good upgrade. I just need some better lower cost creatures just to keep me going till I can actually bring Tiamat out. Oh yeah, I also have a ton of other dragons, so if that combo doesn't work out or I'm just not feeling it, I still have other options. But this was my first commander deck I've built, and it's probably my most powerful. This is a red, white, black angel human deck, but in all actuality, it's an anti-zombie deck. So my nephew has a zombie deck, which I would definitely give a power level high 8, low 9s at the moment. Very close to getting to the definite 9, probably 10. It is, out of my play group that I typically play with, probably the most powerful deck in our group. Very rarely does it not win. So I kind of specifically built this deck to combat it. It focuses on destroying people's graveyards or saying they can't play stuff from the graveyard. There's a bunch of board wipes, which is really important when he can sometimes add hundreds of zombies in one turn. I kid you not. One time we were playing, he had a 30-minute turn. I don't think he won that turn, but if he didn't, he definitely won the turn after. It was disgusting. A ton of my stuff has protection from black. I've got a card in there that says black creatures can't attack or block, which shuts the deck down. I have board wipes that specifically destroy zombies, and just zombies. In a one-on-one, it still gets creamed against the zombie deck. But in a multiplayer game, it does a lot. I don't play it very often against him just because, while it is nice having a deck that can combat a lot of things, I still want everybody to have a fun time. And, he's not going to enjoy everything he plays getting shut down, you know? But it's still nice to have sometimes. This is my newest deck that I just built. I took from Crimson Vow, I took the Precon Commander Vampire deck, which is a black and red deck, and I turned it into a black, red, and white deck as well, and then I made it a life gain deck, and I've played a few games with it, and it is really, really good. I've got a few cards like Noble Purpose, which gives all my creatures Double Strike and Lifelink. I have a lot of cards that just casually give me life for doing different things, like if I play a creature, I get life. It's my upkeep, I get some life. I've got some other cards that give all my creatures lifelink. I have a lot of cards that already have lifelink. I don't have my commander yet. I've been using my commander for my angel human deck, because it's the right colors for this vampire deck when I play, it actually hurts me to play that commander if I have to cast it, which sometimes I've had to, either out of desperation or I've got a vampire in here that says, if you don't control a commander by your instep, you have to take some damage, and that's for all players. So sometimes I have had to cast it. This is a thief deck. It is built completely around stealing other people's creatures. My commander is Rico of the Two Reflections, so it's a red, blue, green deck, and what Riku does is, whenever I cast an instant or sorcery spell, I can pay red and blue. If you do, copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the spell. Or, whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under my control, I can pay green or blue, green and blue, sorry. If I do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, which is really good, because all of my spells are basically, oh, you have that creature? It's mine now. So the ability to copy that spell and then take two creatures is really good. I also have some spells in here that have Storm, which means you get to copy it based on how many times you cast spells before that on that current turn, which then copied turns into me stealing a lot of people's creatures by just casting one spell, and it's really great. Like, I think at one point I was really losing a game, and I cast it. It had Storm. I copied it, and I ended up taking like 8 or 10 creatures, which was almost all the creatures on the board, and I just swung out and attacked people with their own creatures. It was hilarious. This isn't really a game-winning deck. I don't think I've ever won a game with it, but it's a really fun deck to play. Again, it's not one that I play very often just because it can be kind of mean, especially when, like, I get into stealing people's commander. Like, there was one game I owned every commander in our pod. I had everyone playing. I had their commanders at once. It was hilarious, but I also want to make sure that everyone across the board is having a fun time. And again, when you can't do the things your deck is meant to do, you're not really having a good time. But I'm having a good time because it's doing what my deck's meant to do. But again, I don't play it very often. Mother Goose, that's not even a real case. That's a Dragon Shield box. Yes, this is my $2 suspend deck. My commander is Joria the Gitu? I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly. I probably did. But I can spend 2, an exile non-land card from my hand, put 4 time counters on the exiled card. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. And then in 4 turns, I basically get to play that card for free. This is a deck where I am completely helpless for 8 turns. Besides my commander, I will basically have nothing on the board. If I make it to turn 8, then it starts to really pick up, and it's a pretty good deck. But this is a more really casual deck for when I'm playing against new players, because it gives them time to kind of learn the game, play some stuff. It's not just like immediately shutting them down. Other decks I'm working on is I'm like 3 or 4 cards away from finishing a werewolf deck. I just need a couple extra things to help me control the day-night cycle. I'm working on a tax deck, which with Storvald, which Storvald gives all my creatures ward, but also when he attacks, I can give 1 creature base power 7/7 and 1 creature base power 1/1, which I know what you're thinking, that's not very taxy, and you're completely right. So this deck has 2 meanings. I have a ton of cards like Ghostly Prison, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but that make it way more expensive to play the game. And then I've got a lot of really cheap cards that have things like Infect or Ingest, or a bunch of like 1/1 creatures that can't be blocked, that then with Storvald I can turn into 7/7 creatures that can't be blocked, or 7/7 creatures with the Void. And then I've also got, I believe it's called Champions of the Helm. Let me see. Oh, Helm of the Host, which means I can make a copy of a creature and it ignores the legend rule, which means I can make more Storvalds, which means I can be doing this with multiple creatures. And yeah, it's not going to be a very nice deck, but I'm very excited to finish it. I'm also working on a just more casual jank Jumpstart deck. So Jumpstart gives you 20 cards of a single color, and what I want to do is just build a Wooburg deck out of it. I've bought like 6 or 7 Jumpstart decks. I'm literally just missing green, but just as a casual thing to throw together. Again, you know, just something maybe to play against new players or when I'm not really serious about winning. I'm also working on a lot of decks at the moment, just casually, but the only other one I'm really passionate about, I just started working on a Planeswalker deck, which is going to be another jank commander deck, but no creatures, just Planewalkers. I mean, I'll have enchantments and sagas and sorceries, instants, all that other good jazz, but no creatures, just Planeswalkers. And I've got a card, I think it's called the Chain Veil, which I can spend 4 and activate abilities of Planeswalkers a second time. I'm really excited for this one. Again, it's going to be like a real jank deck, but I'm very excited to finish it and actually play it. While I'm showing off, I got to show you guys my playmat. So, as you guys know, my main deck is a Wooburg Dragon deck. So this is my playmat. It has all 5 colors here, and then there's 4 dragons on the side. I absolutely love this thing. It was a Christmas gift from my sister. Thank you, sister, very much. I really appreciate it. I am very excited. I gotta get an actual tub for it. I'm still using the box it came in, which is fine. Okay, and then the last thing I think I want to show you guys is my dice case. Every time I go to my game store, somebody stops and asks me where I got it, or calls me fancy, or thinks it's really cool. So it's this case. I got it on Amazon. I might, if I remember, I'll link this in the description. This is not sponsored, but I've had a ton of people ask me about it, so just in case you guys want one. But it's literally a fancy little dice case. And all your dice just fit in from your D20 all the way down to your D4. And then shout out to my nephew and his wife for getting me this dice right. These dice. It's probably really hard to tell. Let's see if it'll focus. No, it's bent on focusing on my face. Dang it. But this is actual gemstone. It is actually the whole reason I got this case was to protect this dice set. I think it was like $90. Which I'm super appreciative of. But this super fancy. I love this thing. It makes not only Magic the Gathering, but D&D just really easy because they're all in order. I get to pick and choose between what sets I want. Wait. While we're talking about dice, in here, this little bottom compartment, I have the tiniest of dice sets. Look at them. They're so tiny. I couldn't fit an actual dice set in here, and my local game store was doing a dice giveaway, so if you bought a set of dice, you could potentially win another set, and I saw the tiny dice, and I just knew I had to have them. Anyway, I think that's all. I just really like Magic the Gathering, and I wanted to kind of share with you guys what I've been doing these last couple months. I didn't expect this to be a 45-minute video. Well, at least my recording's 45 minutes. I'm sure I'll cut it down a lot, but I love this game. Oh, I should probably talk about Magic the Gathering Arena real quick. It's fun. I think it's a great way to just casually play, or more competitively if you want, but I personally don't play it very often just because I prefer playing in person. I don't think it's as fun playing online. But I know some people can't go to the local game store, or some people, you know, have really bad social anxiety. Trust me, I get it. 5 years ago, I would not have been able to go to a game store and play games. Or, you know, maybe you know you're going to spend money if you go to the game store and you're trying to save up. So, you know, you want to just have a little self-control so you don't go. I don't know. There's a ton of reasons why you may not get to play in person. And Magic the Gathering Arena is a fantastic way to still get to play Magic. But it's just not as fun as in person. Anyway, I think that's all for today. I'm trying to think before I end this video. I love this game. It's so fun. And I think that's all I have for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to join the flock. And I will see you in the next one. Mother Goose out.